Good morning. So I want to talk a little bit about Dark Age of Man. Mostly, it won't be a reflection on the game that Ivan and the company did the other night. But I'm going to tell you what fun was it to see those guys, old friends, veterans. They have played, you name it, they've played it. There's not many systems, there's not many styles of games they have not thrown their experience into. And so it was wonderful to see Dark Age of Man make their docket of experiences, and they gave it a run, and I thought it was fantastic. I knew, again, I've said this before, GMs can do this. It's not like this is. I mean, it's 90 pages, and a lot of it is setting and examples. The rules are very, 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 very simple. So it's not, in that sense, it should not be. I think it's the concepts that can be scary for people. It's the idea that there are no guardrails on some things, right? That we don't define every spell. We don't define what exactly, right? But I wanted to talk about a little bit about that. But it was wonderful. And number one, they're I've known these guys for a long, long time, and this particular group, although I haven't played with in years, we used to play on Thursday nights together, and I used to run Eloy and Jose in a myriad of different games, Lone Star, Lone Wolf, and Adventures of the East Mark, and some other stuff, one-off stuff. And so I've had a lot of experience with these guys, and I've known them a long, long time. But we don't communicate regularly now because I'm not in Facebook anymore, and I'm not playing with them as much as we once did. But it's so my point is they were not really privy to any of the rules or the play testing. They were only able to see the videos that most of the public could see here, and maybe some of the stuff we might share privately in Discord, at least that some of the guys are able to see there if they want to. But the reality is they weren't really. Ivan was in one play test basically, right? So it was so cool to see them pick it up, to treat it with due diligence, and to give it a fair shake. Let's go out, let's kick the tires and light the fires and drive this sucker around the block and see what it is, right? And Ivan nailed it. And we've told people, trust us, it's intuitive and it is natural. And as you get into that shared narrative space and you give a little freedom to the players, and the presenter is almost more of a player now than he is a GM, in the sense that he's also got a job to do that kind of makes it fun for them. How Ivan tied his RSC to his dilemma and his incident was genius. Something that we purposely don't say in the book, because we really want people to find out naive. But that's a genius way to make sure it's contextual, and it points toward the logical, rational thing, which is so cool. And it doesn't break, as I said before. It's not that you don't do that. You can. We just did not define it that way. And the great thing is, nothing breaks the deal. So I talk about a closed math system. Our game is a closed math system. It's that simple. What I mean by that is the system itself governs everything. There are not rules capsules for all the things. So if I have a magic user, there's a spell, which is a rule for every spell of how long, what I can do, how I can do it, when I can do it, what I can do it, how long I can do it, how long it lasts. We don't have all those little rules, right? We have one closed math system, and that math system can deal with anything the players want to be or achieve, right? And how does that work? Because that closed D12 system with modifiers, the presenter is always in control of the difficulty value. So if somebody wants to do something that's truly crazy, I'm going to literally take flight and fly to London, right? Breaking all of our illusions of the world. They can either, as a group, decide don't do shit like that. But it's very simple. The GM sets the DV to 16. Good luck, you know? And when they fail that, or if they critically fail that, what does that look like? And if they take flight, they imagine to do it, and everybody watching goes, "Oh my God, it's a miracle! This guy takes flight." Well, then the presenter can say, "Now you got to land," and it's a DV 16. And they fail that, and they plummet to their death because you took flight, but can you control it, etc. So you don't have to worry about people doing that. If everybody's has integrity at the table of what we're trying to do, and we're sharing this space, and we're all in agreement of the intellectual, we're all in agreement of the time, the space, the physical realm, etc., people will stay there. They're wanting to share this too. And so they won't go too far. And you can define too far, right? Eloy could have said, I want to cause an earthquake. He wants to affect, I'm going to make the whole ground shake, right? And Ivan can say, oh, dude, that's easy. That's a DV4. You can make the ground shake, but it won't cause damage to the creature. It'll just make him fall down, right? Oh, okay. Or he can say, well, then forget that. I'm going to tear a boulder out, with my mind, and I'm going to whip a boulder at the creature. Okay. That's a DV10 to hit the creature to cause it a wound, right? So it's just this exchange of conversation of what you're trying to achieve. And there aren't the boundaries make sense of what kind of fantasy world you're trying to portray, right? And I'm telling you, they did it brilliantly. I joked during watching the thing, if you haven't seen the watch along with us, I joked they're doing our game better than we do our game. It was perfect. Ivan took to it the presenter seat like Sam did, like a duck to water, which proves what I've been saying. I don't think anyone we know has not taken to the presenter's chair. Kevin, David, Sam, Ivan. Oh God, please forgive me. There's somebody else I think who ran it. Well, Dell, of course. I think there's one other person that ran us. Oh, Brian Gregory. All of them. It's not in that sense. It's not new. What's new is we're asking you not to make certain things. We're asking you to let Eloy have his space to define that magic and define the success, right? If you want to. Eloy, basically saying, I'm going to ask the tree which direction it went. Ivan, of course, did the right thing by manifesting the creature and telling him what he wanted to know instead of Eloy inventing something. That's where you don't want to go. Eloy doesn't make the conclusion that it's over here to the left a mile and a half away. That would ruin the world space for Eloy and the players. The players don't want to know everything, right? But the point is, he got what he wanted. It's this direction. That was what was important about it, right? And it worked so smoothly. And the combat, Eloy nailed it because it's moment to moment. And because your roles affect you mostly, they can affect situations, circumstances, and they can affect other players, by the way. We had a combat in one of our sessions a while back where one of Dell's failed rolls actually caused damage on one of the other players, right? So Eloy could have failed the singing spell, and that could have caused damage to Jose trapped in the bubble with the creatures, trapped in the ward. Eloy had set this ward, protective ward, the creature could not escape from, which means as long as he stayed outside its reach, it couldn't get to him. So Eloy had put a protective ward that made sure he was safe from it to some degree. But again, closed math system, if we know the DV and we know how we get that DV and we adjust that DV, the presenter can keep a framework on the fiction to some degree that makes sense. And when Eloy attempted to, through his magic to sing a song that would befuddle the creature or would distract the creature, his failed roll, Ivan perfectly turns the creature's ire onto him and spews a screeching belch, which wounds him via his ears, right? Perfect. Didn't have to reach him, right? And no one went, really, dude? They all went, dude, it makes total sense. We're fighting this fake creature that just, focuses this sonic kind of screech. And that's how Ivan explained how he could have damaged Eloy. And nobody went, that doesn't make sense. It's perfect. But he could have said, you made the creature so angry that he is waylaying upon Jose, who's right there in a sword fight. And they get it. They get how because it's moment to moment, it's live. It simulates normally, naturally, who's involved and what people are doing. Jose could literally say, I'm going to swing, and they roll. And then Jose could say, I'm swinging again, and they roll again. Because the danger there is Eloy could fail 2 in a row and suffer bang, not Eloy, Jose could suffer bang, bang wounds, right? So sometimes you want to step back, take a break, and see if other people can affect it, right? But Eloy, Jose could literally have torn into the creature and defined how he was just going after this creature. And then eventually Eloy would have had time to cast that spell. And of course, Jim was praying and using his iron cross. But Jim could have said, I'm calling upon God to strike the beast with lightning, right? And literally called from the heavens lightning, right? Praying to God to cause damage, right? Because it's a closed math loop. You're either going to do 1 damage or you're going to do 2 damage to the creature, no matter what you define. I could define that I shake the earth, right? I still have to succeed to cause damage to the creature. Now, if I say I just want to shake the earth to actually put it on its butt, so it makes it easier for Jose and him, then that would lower the DV of the creature, right? The DV is at 10. and he shakes the earth and he succeeds. And he says, shaking the earth's not that hard for you here. You're just like rippling the earth. That's a 5. He rolls, ripples the earth, creature falls down, lowers their DV from a 10 to an 8, giving Jose an opportunity attack at a lower score, right? So our game, when people look at the book and they see the math, they see the dragon, they go, dude, there is no, how we will never beat a dragon. Yeah, you will, because you use your imagination to defeat the dragon, right? Eloy reaches out and says, I restrain the dragon from flight, and casts a spell to hold the dragon to the earth. And he succeeds, lowering the DV of the dragon now that it can't take flight, reducing its overall abstract ability. So remember, it's abstract. And because it's a closed math loop, this is abstracted. So that would be an abstract effect upon the value of the dragon. He was a 15, now he's a 12, because Eloy has restrained him to the ground, making it easier for Jose and 2 of their soldiers to fight the dragon, right? There we go. And we could still have, the priest either blessing Jose and the soldiers to lower the DV one more step, get it down to an 11, or he could bless his own weapon, lowering the DV against the creature for himself, or he could literally call a lightning strike down upon the dragon from God himself, and causing 1 or 2 wounds. Or an effect, right? It can cause 1 if I succeed. I can cause 2 if it's a critical wound to the creature, or it can be whatever effect I want. I want to disarm the bandit, right? So I roll a crit. I could do 2 wounds and kill the bandit instantly, or I could declare I don't want to kill the bandit, but I want to disarm him, and I want him on his back with my sword at his neck, and I'm going to say to him, "Are you ready to talk to me?" Right? You don't have to kill him, right? You don't have to. Oops, damn! I cut his head off by accident, right? So the space is creative and shared by everybody at the table, including the GM, including the players. And because it's a closed math loop, it is bound by the math. It's not bound by capsulized rules. How do you camp? Here's a rule for camping. Nah, camp, right? And define your rest. And the presenter will present whatever might come into play around your campsite, right? It's that simple. So anyway, I didn't want to talk about that, and here I did. I ended up talking about all that. So that wasn't the goal of this conversation, believe it or not. I did want to point out, so I've had the hardback Lulu book for a couple of weeks. I opened it up for the video a couple times. I have shared it with a couple of local people. I went to lunch and I let them flip through it. They could see it and flip through it. So I would say I've opened this book maybe 5 times since getting it. And I've let, again, a couple of friends in the area flip through it and look at it. But you'll notice it is created a white crack in the finish, which may be normal, by the way. I don't know. But there is now a white crack in the backside paint of the hardback from Lulu. So be aware, that's another reason why it's cheaper than it's going to be cheaper than the hardback from Drive-Thru RPG. So you're going to see that's one of the reasons, right? So not pointing that out to hurt just so people are aware that, again, I don't know if the hardback is ideal. I'm not a huge hardback fan when it comes to practical use anyway. For collection, yeah, I like hardbacks to collect, but when it comes to use, I love the paperback mat for use. And this is still, and this I have worn out. Every human being I know has seen this book, handled this book, flipped through this book. I've gone through it. I've used it already. And again, we're not seeing any of that cracking there in the black on the black side. So it's definitely a hardback deal there. So anyway, pretty cool. So I didn't really want to recap or talk about their session. I think it's amazing. You should just go watch it or watch us re-watch it. But I'm grateful that they were willing to, put it in the docket and to give it a go. And I'm thrilled to see that they took to it exactly as I've predicted that players will and GMs will. You just got to let go a little bit, and you got to trust yourself that you won't, that somebody at your table won't try to break the world or the narrative by doing something like drawing a gun in the Dark Ages. Everyone at the table is going to say, dude, come on, put the gun away, right? That's messed up. And nobody's going to do that. Nobody is that or trust is going to sit down and draw a gun at the table, right? I mean in the fiction. I don't mean live. I hope to God you're not playing with somebody who would pull a gun on you at the table, right? But we're living in a world now where you just don't know what's going to happen, right? In this world we live in. But you get my point. People want to share the space, and they want to stay in that space, and they want to respect that space. And when I say what I'm doing, and it's yes and yes, but, and the presenter says yes, but the creature turns his ire upon you and screeches, and you feel a tremendous pain in your eardrums, etc. And you are now battered, right? You're now sweating and battered. It's conversational. It's that simple. And we already know because Eloy failed the role, or Eloy had a critical failure. We know it's 2 wounds. And not only that, you're knocked back and you literally have blood coming from, you can't hear, you got blood coming from your head, you're dizzy, having trouble focusing, and you took 1 wound, but your mind has been knocked for 1 temporarily. Now your mind, you're a little bit dizzy. So your mind was a 3. I'm going to take your mind down to a 2. It's temporary, but you're affected. Or you could say, bam, bam, you're now injured, right? You've actually suffered an injury. Blood from the ears could be the injury, or you could define that injury as your back's hurt, or you might have sprained your wrist when you were flung down, whatever. You can, it totally works. Injured is the condition. How we define it, up to us. And injured takes a particular type of rest. So they can't just make injured go away, right? They have to rest and get healing, right? So it isn't like battered or fatigued. Fatigued is just a few minutes rest, a few hours rest. Battered is usually a few hours rest, or and then so they all have a little harder to recover from. But the DAoM in a closed math loop can define how that critical effect looked. It doesn't have to just be 2 wounds. It could be, and your mind is affected. And I give these examples in the book where the mind, the vampire affected Dell's mind with an initial attack, right? Dell walked up, he failed the roll, and the creature zapped. He failed an encounter check with him, and I described how it affected his mind. He was knocked on his butt. He had a splitting headache, and his mind had been reduced to 0. I mean, from whatever the character might have been to an actual 0 for whatever period of time, right? And those effects can be temporary. If they're permanent, you generally want to have critical failure, and then you want it defined a little better, right? To be a permanent effect. But a permanent effect can be reduced by a ritual that somebody has to do for you. You get 1 shot at fixing it. If it's a failed ritual, it's not fixed. Some things can be remedied by spending new repute points to remedy it, or sometimes you're just stuck. You're going to be stuck with, if you ended up with a -1 body from a disease or something, or from an injury, then that would be an effect that might be upon you forever, that you now forever, right? You've survived the combat with the werewolf, but it mangled your left arm, and you're forever affected by the loss of that left arm, right? And that becomes part of your character and your narrative world that we're now in, right? But there's nothing to restrain you then from spending points on mind and learning magic. There's nothing to restrict you from becoming a priest and trusting God, right? So you start spending repute points on your mind and your spirit, and you can start using miracles and magic, right? So again, there's nothing, or prestige, and just become a leader of men and affect play by having soldiers with you as your bonus in combat, right? My prestige is now 4, and there are 3 bodyguards with me all the time, and that gives me a +3 to all my combat rolls, right? My -1 body would reduce that to 2, right? So it's all math. It's just a closed math system. You can make sense rationally, logically of all the math, and then narratively how it affects your character for future play. One of the things I thought was so cool, one of the reasons we used the comic book, and I've talked about this a little bit, and I've talked about this in conversations people may not have seen, the comic book literally sets the idea of, again, this in total is a complete whole package, right? It's not meant to be read in pieces. It's meant to be understood as a complete thing. So we started with the idea of comic book, not so much over the top heroics, but the sense that what they say, that comic panel is what is said, and then a die roll occurs to dictate who suffers the damage, right? This is really how the game functions. Imagine everything that we say as a prompt for the die roll, and that die roll is going to prompt the next comic book panel description, right? This is Dark Age of Man. It's meant to be seen that way. So if that's true, and I do define in the book chronicle play and a campaign play and what that would look like, imagine every session of your Dark Age of Man game is a comic book. It's a singular comic book story, right? You could see it as a TV episode. You could see it as a chronicle, short story. But if you think about Dark Age of Man as every session being a comic book in a series of 4 special series of comics, right? Right. It should hopefully help understand again, kind of how you should, in a way, envision the things that are happening with the dice being the narrative, prompting the narrative result, where we're going to redefine circumstance, situation, or a cause and effect. vice versa, either for you or against you, either for the party or against the party, right? And all the GM needs to know is DV. The players need to understand whatever bonus they might get, but usually the DM can just reduce a DV as a response to an interesting thing that the players do, right? I don't have to give them a +1 on top of their already +2 sword and their +4 body, right? It's just easier to say, okay, go ahead and do that. And I just reduce the DV. They don't even have to know I've reduced the DV a point or 2 points. But you could tell them, hey, that's amazing because of that effect of the ground knocking it off its feet. It's now effectively at DV 9 for now, right? Until the next turn, right? Or until the next moment, right? And then naturally the GM has to say the creature gets up. That simulates the moment. That's what I did. The creature got up. I don't have to define, well, what can I do in a turn? It's moment to moment. The GM is going to have to express at some point the creature gets up. Or Ivan could express the creature stays on its back, but with 4 arms lashes out from its back with one of its hands swiping at Jose's feet. And that could still be a combat check, right? The creature's going to be doing it, though, at a DV9 because he's staying on the ground. And so instead of a DV10 strike at Jose, it's a DV9 strike at Jose. It's easier for Jose to jump over this hand now. The creature's in an observed position. It's a closed loop math system where the math and the system itself, if the game is only bounded by the actual system, not by rules. There are rules that define certain things, but again, we agree is a bounded system. But the reality is that our imaginations become what's important. Well, what we say matters, what's happening matters, yes and yes, but, and we improvise. Ivan had to improvise. Every time he rolled an RSC, he had to improvise. Every time they would say something he didn't expect, he has to improvise. GMs have to do this all the time when players, they go to their well of ideas and they pull up something and you go, whoa, that's a cool idea. And everybody goes, dude, that's a great idea. It happens all the time. In our game, we can actually represent that whoa by dropping the DV 2 points, right? To say, ooh, that's a great idea. You're going to use what to do what? Oh, dude, okay, that's going to drop the DV for this now to 8, as this is a doable plan to lasso the creature's legs, right? It's Luke Skywalker getting out and shooting and wrapping up the legs of the ATT, right? The AT-AT, right? Wraps up it's a great idea. The AT-AT is a normal difficulty of 15, but Luke says, I'm going to trip this up, and he has to make the shot. We lower the DV. It's a good idea. He wraps it up with a critical hit, and then now the thing is topples, falls out of play, right? Or whatever we define, depending on the epicness that you want to play. Do you want to play it grindy, where it's really tough, you got to achieve it everything, or you can play kind of pulp big, where there's epic moments like that. So again, your comic book doesn't have to be pulpy, but think about every time somebody speaks in that moment, it's going to derive, well, what are we going to say next? And what we're going to say next is going to be very dependent upon your goals when you roll the dice or the circumstances of failure, right? Very simple. So that's what I want to talk about. I wanted to point out, be careful on that hardback, folks. You might find that that's a problem. Also, the idea of the closed math comic book kind of episodic play, right? So anyway, thanks for watching. Bye-bye.